Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm here with the EarthEcho team, and we are so excited to share with you more about why a healthy ocean matters, some of the challenges that our ocean is currently facing, and of course, our solution, which is to protect 30% of the ocean by the year 2030. Now, that may seem like a really big goal, but we're going to break down for you exactly how we can achieve such a massive goal so that we can help protect our planet for the future. But before we dive right in, I do want to first of all thank the National Biodiversity Teach-In for hosting this wonderful event. And let's get started. So first off, I just want to introduce our incredible team. We are here with EarthEcho International. We are really excited just to get to know you guys a little bit more and to share about our ocean. But I do first of all just want to say that there are multiple ways for you guys to interact with us throughout this presentation. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can just drop your comments or questions in the chat below. And if you're watching on Zoom, you can also just put them in the chat or use the question and answer function on the bottom of your screen. So we will be checking those throughout and then have a session at the end for you to ask any of your questions and we can answer them then. But first of all, we're going to each introduce ourselves. So first of all, my name is Olivia Blonheim. I'm currently based out of Tampa, Florida. I am currently pursuing my PhD and I'm in the second or third year of my PhD. And so I am studying how mangroves impact different community dynamics and marine ecosystems. And I also have been with EarthEcho for the past 3 years. And so I sit on their Youth Leadership Council and on their board of directors. And we also have Armand, who unfortunately could not make it here today, but he was a huge part of putting together this presentation. So next I'll pass it over to Maddie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maddie. I'm a sophomore at Vanderbilt University studying ecology and organismal biology, as well as biological anthropology on the pre-veterinary track. And I have a background in sea turtle comparative immunology. I work as a leatherback sea turtle technician during nesting season in Juno Beach, which is one of the most densely nested sea turtle beaches in the world. And I have been developing my network and research projects in the field and in the lab to try to better understand sea turtle health as an indicator of decreasing environmental health, as it substantially decreases as prevalence in global health decreases. And so I'm really excited to get to speak with you all today. Something else I'm really passionate about is the relationship between coastal communities and landlocked communities, because I went from being on the coast in Florida to being landlocked in Nashville. So I believe wherever you are, you can have an impact on our environment.
And hey everyone, my name is Leela Devine. I'm currently a senior in high school, currently based in Hilo, Hawaii, and I have a background and focus on marine-based medical research, specifically marine pharmacology with prostate and ovarian cancer cell lines. And I currently do my research at the Daniel K. Inouye College of Pharmacy at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. I'm also an EarthEcho International Youth Leadership Council member, and I'm super excited to be speaking with you all. And so to give a kind of some insight on who we are and as a Youth Leadership Council, EarthEcho International is a nonprofit organization, and it's founded on the belief that youth have the power to change our planet. Founded by Philippe Cousteau Jr., our mission is really to inspire young people worldwide to act now for a sustainable future. And as a brief overview, 30 by 30 is a call to action to safeguard at least 30% of the world's ocean and land by 2030 through marine protected areas. And so we'll be going over 4 aspects of OceanEcho 30 by 30 and this movement to pretty much help better equip you towards understanding and taking action within your own communities. We have the bad, the good, the why, and the how. Now, to start off with the bad, we kind of asked the question, what challenges are facing the ocean? There are 2 main roots of this trouble, which is human impact or extraction and the climate crisis, both of which are firmly rooted in human activity. So nearly every corner of the ocean has been touched by human impact or extraction, with over 2/3 of the ocean significantly altered by human activity. We have plastic pollution where about 8 million metric tons are thrown in the ocean annually, and this affects both the animal and the human food chain. We also have overfishing as a major issue, in which we see that a dwindling fish stock can destroy marine habitats like coral reefs and leave communities that rely on fish protein extremely vulnerable. Now, for decades, the world's oceans has literally been taking the heat for climate change, absorbing over 90% of the heat and nearly 1/3 of the carbon dioxide from greenhouse gas emissions. This has resulted in 3 really big problems: coral bleaching, ocean acidification, and fish migration. And the result is that an ocean is warmer, more acidic, less productive, and increasingly starved of oxygen. And so overall, the ocean is becoming less habitable for fish and wildlife. As someone who's from Hawaii, specifically the Big Island, I focused my research background on effective utilization of our reefs in terms of sustainability in natural product source-based pharmaceutical and cancer research. And we're already seeing the results of all of these problems regarding coral bleaching and ocean acidification. Coral reefs in Hawaii are home to a range of unexplored microbes and compounds that can exhibit strong anti-proliferative activity against both prostate and ovarian cancer cell lines. But the catch is, we've found that the species that are most vulnerable in this field are those that are also most valuable. We see that these are the ones that reside in habitats that are susceptible to rising water temperatures, to ocean acidification, coral bleaching, as well as other effects of pollution. And this is exactly what we're trying to combat with the 30 by 30 initiative. An example that I have here is the Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument. It encompasses around 583,000 square miles of ocean waters and is the largest fully protected conservation area within the US. It's a biodiverse hotspot, but even in some of the largest protected areas, we've witnessed influxes in coral bleaching events over the years, and the most prominent and severe being in 2014, 2015, and 2019, posing large threats for species that are crucial to the reef's well-being and our ability to understand these impacts. By analyzing these exact trends in diverse reef areas and figuring out how certain sponges and corals used in sustainable medical research are being impacted despite protection and biodiversity, we can really continue to gain a further understanding on the severity of coral bleaching, even within a marine protected area. Since 1986, the trends within bleaching and stress episodes of these reefs that they face, we can see that chronological progression can correlate with increases in time span of this bleaching alerts and severity. And these 2014 and 2015 heat waves that I see on the screen here, these bleaching stressors basically set a new pattern and a new normal for increased episodes, not only on a global scale, but here in Hawaii as well. But there's other great things that we can look forward when we're looking at marine protected areas and the 30 by 30 initiative.
So I know it can be tough to get caught up in the doom and gloom of the bad out there, especially when the concerns are so pressing, but there are good news. The ocean is home to most of the world's organisms and has consistently made everyone's lives better. And I think we often forget that when we take action for the natural systems around us, we're not only doing them a favor, not just doing the ocean a favor, but we're investing in a healthier future for us. So here are a couple of reasons why and how the ocean helps everyone. We look at the first one here it provides our oxygen, produces over half the world's oxygen. And I know it can be hard to fully realize the extent to which we depend upon the ocean, but we rely on it for clean air to breathe, regulation of temperature, fresh water needed for drinking, and the pretty views that also contribute to processing power, industrial applications in daily life, and even daily convenience items. The ocean plays a critical role in removing carbon from the atmosphere and providing oxygen, as we can see. And then with the thermostat, the ocean actually transports heat from the equator to our poles, regulating our climate. It helps manage the tides that we see and the weather patterns that we rely upon for agriculture and other practices. In our freshwater systems too, you don't have to live by the ocean to see the daily positive impacts of having water near you. It provides fresh water for drinking and other opportunities, and as well as the resources. Kelp from the ocean is used in natural shampoos, conditioners, even toothpaste. And there are algae out there, I'm sure Leela's familiar with the other marine life too, byproducts from coral that are used to be treating arthritis, allergies, asthma, a lot of other options as well. We also have to remember that everything in our world is drastically interconnected. Healthy fish populations contribute to vibrant coral reefs that lead to bluer oceans and more inhabitable Earth. We see our fish populations interconnected with not only the fish that we consume, but the fish that larger marine organisms consume so that they can survive and contribute to a healthy ecosystem. And that's why by strongly protecting at least 30% of the ocean by 2030, we can ensure that coastal communities thrive, ocean life is protected, and we give the ocean a chance to begin adapting to climate change that we've had a hand in causing over the years. And we can move to the next one. Perfect. The ocean is extremely important. Nearly 40% of the world's population lives within 62 miles of the coast. And by 2050, that'll be 50% because of rising tides and changes in shoreline. And as well as that, it's home to so many different species of marine organisms that we haven't even learned about yet, that can be tapped into for medical resources, for our own selfish purposes for humanity, but then also are doing wonderful things to balance the ecosystem that we don't even know about yet, and that we could be harming second-handedly without knowing it. I also wanted to touch upon this example of wetlands. This was a particular study. I wonder if I have the slide here, maybe not. If you could jump to 2 slides ago, my bad. There's this really interesting study that looked at comprehensive sets of natural and human factors to examine the role that coastal wetlands play in reducing tropical cyclone-related property damage, which I think applies to everyone here, whether or not you live on the coast. They actually calculated the expected economic value of protective effects of wetlands in different regions, and then projected the implications for defense policy, whether it's taking on insurance for your home or not. And their model predicted that property damage caused by Hurricane Irma would have been reduced by $430 million if 500 kilometers squared of wetlands lost between 1996 and 2010 had been maintained. So we can save millions of dollars by protecting the environment. It's not just this reductive effort that we're sacrificing what we have in order to protect others. We play a direct role in helping us as well. And then we can jump to that last slide. Thank you, Leela. Perfect. And so something I've experienced being from Florida and traveling to Nashville is how being in a landlocked community and trying to bridge the gap in understanding plays a huge role in the economic benefits we experience from industrial landscapes inland and then also coastally. The world's ocean and coasts produce a huge ton of services that we need every day and gives the US a lot of money, $2.5 trillion per year. So we need it healthy in order to get the resources that we receive on the daily. And then, of course, it also provides a primary source of food. Whether or not you eat seafood directly, there's products from seafood being included in products you may not even expect. And it's a source of protein for over 3 billion people. And so for me, stories from the coast that travel inward is really important because a healthy ocean is not only significant for its eco benefits, but also its economic benefits. And we see that daily. So now that we've talked about the good that the ocean provides, I'll pass it over to Olivia to discuss how we can apply the information we've learned to take action.
Awesome. Thank you, Maddie. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about what is so special about this 30 by 30 goal. So first of all, what is 30 by 30? So 30 by 30 is really our call to action to safeguard 30% of the world's oceans by 2030. And how we can do this is by utilizing a network of marine protected areas, or MPAs. And what happens in these MPAs is it's basically this little area that we set aside that we say we're going to allow the ocean to heal. Now, every single MPA has different rules and regulations. Some allow for ecotourism, so if you can go and you can snorkel and you can see the area. Some places are a little bit more restrictive and aren't as open to people visiting. Sometimes they allow fishing during certain times of the year, sometimes they don't. So it really just depends on the community's needs and what they determine they want to see in this MPA, because ultimately all of our ocean ecosystems, they really do, we are connected to them, and we get to kind of say, you know, how are we connected to them and how can we help to benefit them, but also how do they benefit us? And so just like I said before, they have no destructive or extractive activities like overfishing or mining in these particular areas. So right now, if you think about it, we only have just over 2% of the world's ocean fully protected. Now, when we think about that, our ocean covers 70% of our Earth. So we think a lot of times about protecting areas like rainforests or really cool places that we can go and we can hike and visit. But sometimes some of the most pressing issues are facing something that we don't always get to see every day, which is the ocean. But also something that Maddie touched on a little bit is that we know so little still about the ocean. So if we think about things like outer space and how we've actually, been able to explore these places and learn great things about it, when we think about our ocean, there's still so much that is left unexplored, and we don't even know how some of our actions could be impacting them before some of these places are in jeopardy or gone. And so, one thing that I recently learned that I thought was super cool was that there are actually more bacteria in our ocean than stars in our galaxy. And so that was wild to me because there's so much richness in our oceans, from our whales to all the way down to bacteria and viruses and things that we can't even see, that really play into these marine ecosystems. So what would protecting 30% of the ocean achieve? So there's a couple of different things. So one thing is climate mitigation, right? So it protects these coastal habitats, like Maddie had also mentioned, like mangroves and seagrasses that are super rich and help to store carbon. They help to protect coastlines. That a lot of times they serve as nurseries or temporary feeding grounds for different fish species. So these really rich habitats that are right along the coast that a lot of times you'll see that like hotels or places don't necessarily want because they kind of block that pretty view to the ocean, but they actually are doing so much for us and for protecting a lot of these marine ecosystems that we rely on. Another thing is that they serve as safe havens. So marine protected areas have been supported over the years to actually produce more and bigger fish and fish species diversity. So one thing that we know about fish is that they don't sit on the bottom and just stay there forever. They are able to move around and swim. And so one thing that happens is a lot of times these fish, while they may start in the marine protected area, a lot of times they'll swim inside and outside of these areas. And so what happens later is that we actually get a lot more diverse fish in these areas. And they also have this nice little place where they can go, they can rest, they can reproduce, and they can create even bigger fish that later on can help to sustain that population. So another thing is about the community. So again, we are all connected to our ocean again. And so no matter whether you can see it every day or you maybe only see it once a year, maybe you've never seen it all the times that we forget that a lot of our food, the air we breathe, and so many communities that may not necessarily we may not necessarily think about, but a lot of times they actually rely on this ocean. So some places they strictly rely on the fish that they catch that day and have that sustain their families. So that's a really big thing, is that by protecting the ocean, we're ultimately protecting all of us as a community. And lastly, again, this idea of resilience. So as our climate is changing, our ocean is also changing in response to that. So a lot of times we're seeing things like extreme weather events that we haven't seen in the past, and they're more frequent. We're seeing sea level rise in coastal areas. And again, this is a really big thing about if we want to sustain populations for long periods of time, we have to think about all of these different factors that play into it. And so as we are again kind of exploring this idea of protecting these areas, again, even if you've never seen it, there are extreme economic benefits of protecting 30% of our ocean. And so that is one thing that a lot of scientists are currently studying, is all the different ways that we rely on economically our ocean. And also on a side note, like things, how it relates back to our safety and how we work as a country. I mean, Maddie and Leela both talked a little bit about how much we rely on ocean transport for a lot of the products we receive and connecting us with the rest of the world. So realistically, it's not just about the direct benefits that we get by being in the ocean and seeing it in the fish, but also just economically how it's supporting us every single day. And here's just a quick little image of what it would look like if we had 30% of the ocean protected. So you can see the blue here is going to be all of the different ocean. You can see all of our different continents here laid out in white. And then all of the orange is going to be all of the areas. If we did actually achieve this 30 by 30 goal, what areas would be protected? So you see a lot of our coastlines are protected. Maybe, later on, you can think about like where you would be and what you would hope to see if 30% of the ocean was protected. Where would you like to see protected? What are some of the places that you really value that you would like to see kind of included in this? And so now we're going to explore about the how. So again, 30 by 30, that seems like a really big goal. I mean, we're only 9 years away from that goal now, right? So how are we going to potentially reach such a big, have such a big impact on the ocean? So first of all, one thing that you can do right now is live plastic free. So plastics can be extremely harmful to our oceans. Many fish and different plankton and everything really seems to be inundated with plastic right now. So we know that there are sometimes fish that eat microplastics, which are really, really tiny plastics when the plastic starts to break down in the ocean. We also know that right now, every single minute, one garbage truck of plastic is dumped into the ocean. So we're clearly not catching up with the amount that we're putting in, we're not taking back out. So that's something that we have to really think of. And so by 2050, they even predict that there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. So you can see that this is such a massive issue in our ocean. But one of the big things that we can do is just by choosing no to plastic. So you don't have to do it for everything in your life, but just start thinking about what are some things that you can easily eliminate in your lifestyle that allow you to use something that may be reusable or is not made of plastic. So for example, when I go to the grocery store, I bring reusable canvas totes with me to carry my groceries home with, because that's one less plastic bag that I have to take home with me. You can eliminate straws. You can think about, one thing that I've been working on is going through my bathroom and figuring out what are some things that I use that are made out of, that have plastic. So whether that's toothpaste or toothbrushes or anything like that. And so you can start small, but it's really, if every single one of us made these choices, think about how much less plastic would be ending up in the ocean. So another thing you can do is really what you're already doing is by being here right now. So one thing is about learning about what your impact is on the ocean and how you can help. And so as soon as you leave here today, you have so much power because you now know what's going on in the ocean. So you can go, you can talk to family and friends and help to share with them a little bit more and encourage them to also take up this 30 by 30 goal. You can also contact your local politicians and encourage them to make policies for our country that really help to support this goal as well. And then also you can give a presentation just like we're giving here today to your local green club, community organizations, anywhere where you're really involved. As we've mentioned many times today, the ocean touches all of us in so many ways. And so no matter what group you're part of, everybody can really be part of helping with this goal. And so if you want to get involved right now, one thing you can do is you can go to earthecho.org/youth for tons of different resources that'll help you get more information, that'll help you learn how to give a talk just like this. We have our summit coming up actually on Saturday. We have these periodically throughout the year. So we have lots of different opportunities for you to get engaged, connect with other young people who are doing this work from all over the world, and also just learn from other leading experts in the field. And also right now, if you have a Facebook or an Instagram or Twitter account or any kind of social media, we're going to welcome you to join our My OceanEcho Challenge. So what you can do is you can go on to any of those platforms and just share a little bit about why the ocean matters to you and why you're taking the My OceanEcho Challenge to help protect 30% of the ocean by 2030. And again, I did mention briefly, we do have our Youth Action Network meetup, so you can go there. We have one coming up tomorrow, but we also have different events that go on throughout the year that you can get involved with. And again, these are just really brief meetups for you to meet all kinds of people from around the world virtually. And again, we have different topics for each one, from policy to science communication. So we have lots of different ways for you to get involved. And so lastly, I want to leave you with this. As much as we hear about every single day, the doom and the gloom about how our ocean is in danger, it really is not too late. If we decide to take action right now, we can create a better future. And it really just all is up to us to decide to make that change. And now I'm going to leave us with, here's all of our different social media platforms if you'd like to follow us and get more engaged with EarthEcho International. And now we're going to take some questions. So I'll pass it over to Maddie to start us off.
Perfect. Thank you, Olivia. So we have a question from Cindy in North Dakota. What are 3 things or actions that people in landlocked states can do to help the ocean? That's a fantastic question, because I think living on the coast, I witness the ocean and the way that plastic directly goes into the waves every day. And not everybody has the opportunity to see that direct impact. And so it might be tough to fully understand your role, the role that you play in protecting our oceans and our environment. So a couple of things that are at the top of my mind, such as Olivia mentioned, are 1, reduce your plastic footprint. transition to canvas totes, transition to more sustainable alternatives when you're able. I know that not everyone has the opportunity or the resources to do so, but it can start as simply as investing in $1 canvas tote instead of using plastic bags at the grocery store. And that can make a huge difference in terms of carbon footprint and how much plastic you're using. Something else that comes to mind is how consumers can vote with your dollars. And so you can hold manufacturers and corporations responsible for pollution by realizing and advocating that our natural world needs our help, and insisting on buying products that contain recycled content or are not as damaging to the environment, and doing your research to find sustainable alternatives that are likely at a similar price point, but don't have as much as an economic disadvantage to our environment. And then something else is just educating others. As Olivia said, by coming to this event, you're educating yourself and opening yourself up to a world of additional information. I know for me, a specific example that comes to mind is I did a project focused on micronized chemical like spray sunscreen and the dangers of the small chemicals that actually penetrate our bodies and also have a detrimental impact on the marine environment. I would have never realized that spray sunscreen had hazardous effects if I hadn't begun to do my research or to speak to other people. But now that I realize the dangers of spray sunscreen, whether or not you're landlocked or by the coast, I think a lot of people use sunscreen. And if more people realize that, there could be a huge impact on the waste that goes into our environment. We could protect ourselves and others as well. So fantastic question.
And next we have a question from Maxwell in Iowa. And he asks, what are your roles within EarthEcho and how did you get involved? So we can all kind of go around the room here and share our different stories. I'm going to tell you right now, one thing that I love about, because all of us are in the Youth Leadership Council. And one thing that I love is everyone kind of comes from these different backgrounds. We're all interested in the environment in different ways, right? We have people with backgrounds in business, people with backgrounds in research, kind of like using poetry in the arts. You know, we have all of these different youth from around the world who kind of come together. And so a little bit about my story, I come from a background, especially here in Hawaii, doing a lot of research. I started off at the Marine Sciences Department and did a lot of research on different correlations between parts of our reefs, moving from turbidity to like ocean waves and sand grain sizes, the buildup of our reefs and the breakdown of our reefs over time. And I kind of moved into this medical-based like research. And something that I kind of wanted to do is I wanted to find a way to really advocate for a lot of this. I wanted to find a way to share about my findings as well as be able to communicate and talk to other people. And that's kind of how I got into the whole environmental field. And since then, my time with EarthEcho has been great, being able to speak with all of you guys, meeting so many new people, such as Olivia and Maddie here, with also amazing, amazing backgrounds that I'm sure they can speak about as well. And it's really just been this really, really great community where we've been able to come together, advocate and push forward initiatives such as this one. I don't know if Maddie or Olivia wants to take.
Okay, sure. I'll go next and then Maddie can jump right in. But I also have a very similar story to Leela in terms of my background in research. So I originally am from Maryland and I always was really interested in the ocean. And when I went to college, though, it was a really new experience for me because I was a first-generation college student. So I was the first in my family to go to college, and it was a really new experience. And I kind of just fell into research as I was getting connected with different professors and figuring out more and more about my interest in marine biology. But I went to a really small school in northern New Jersey that was a couple hours from the coast and didn't have a marine biology program. So all of my different experiences in marine biology were through different programs across the country. So I studied in Oregon for a little bit. I got to study in Belize and Bonaire, which is a tiny little island off the coast of Venezuela. And through all those experiences, I came into contact with a ton of amazing people who would send me different opportunities. And so when I found out about EarthEcho and the Cousteau legacy, which is major since there's such a legacy of scuba diving and exploration and communicating science with the public, I knew I just wanted to be part of that mission and to learn even more how I could be an ocean advocate. So I joined almost actually now 4 years ago. And I've been with the Youth Leadership Council since then and been part of such amazing, initiatives with other young people. And then I stuck around and later joined their board of directors. And so I get to kind of see things at a higher level in the organization. So it's really been a pleasure to get to be part of such a huge movement of people who are out there protecting the ocean and really fighting for our planet. But now I'll pass it to Maddie, and I want to hear her story.
Yeah, wonderful. So I actually learned about this opportunity through another youth leadership council that I had gotten involved in. When I was in late middle school, early high school, it was really hard for me to be taken seriously as a young person who wanted to be engaged in research. So a lot of PhDs and potential mentors would say that I'm too young. I should just enjoy the life that I have as a kid and not try to get professional yet, which in my mind was completely unrelated because I just wanted to learn more, answer scientific questions, explore this whole unknown realm of the marine nature. And so through that, I had to start getting more aggressive in who I contacted and just learning more about the opportunities that are out there for young people. And through that, I was connected to one mentor that was extremely influential on my life and allowed me to kind of get kickstarted with the research that I conduct. And so once I started gaining momentum from that, I expanded my network. I met a lot of wonderful peers that were also young and motivated and trying to figure out what this world looks like for young people before we have our PhD, before we get that high level resume boosting experience. We were just really passionate. And so once I joined my youth leadership council in early high school, I was able to build those networks and was eventually introduced to the EarthEcho Youth Leadership Council. So I applied for that. Wonderfully, I was accepted. So this is my first year on the council, and it's just so exciting to get to meet everybody and learn about the wonderful work that they're doing, and especially see the direct impact that we can have as young people. We just need to identify that one potential mentor, attend an event like this, learn more, and then start getting really passionate about a topic and not letting anything prevent us from reaching those goals.
So now we also, I see a lot of questions are coming in about the event on Saturday. So Leela, do you mind pulling that slide up one more time with the information so that way we can go through that really quickly. So if you are still interested in joining us on Saturday, the registration is still open, and you can see that in the chat. The event will go from 2 to 6 p.m. Eastern time, and tomorrow's meetup is all focused on policy. So we have some really great speakers who are coming in talking about 30 by 30 from the policy perspective and kind of what's going on in DC and how you can bring that back to a local level in your community. And then also, we're going to have some really awesome opportunities for you to network with the other young people. We have some really cool icebreakers so that you're going to get to know all these people who you're joining on Saturday. And then also we have a really special workshop where we're going to learn how to do an op-ed or an opinion piece for your local newspaper. So lots of great opportunities tomorrow. You can stay for as little or as long as you want, but the more the merrier. So we'd love to see you out there tomorrow. So now we're just looking through the questions really quick because we don't want to miss any more for seeing in the chat. I know one question that did come up was, what are some of our favorite ocean conservation resources or groups? So I'll definitely pass that one to Maddie and Leela to see what they have to say about that one.
Yeah, for sure. I think there are so many out there that all have a very different perspective on the way that they approach marine life conservation, the way that they get engaged. For me, I think I'm a little biased, but EarthEcho is a wonderful resource. I think I have to plug it. I think that there are just so many ways to get involved. We have different speakers that come in and get to engage with the community that is really special to me. But personally, I think getting involved in local estuaries or nature reserves near you is a super wonderful way to learn more and have a personal connection to your nature. And so there are big organizations that connect people internationally and nationally that do wonderful work, but there's also ways in your own backyard to kind of see what's going on. I assure you there are research opportunities and even just like natural ways to get involved that are right in your own backyard that you can do some research into and see. I know for me, Loggerhead Marine Life Center in South Florida has been an organization very close to my heart, works with sea turtles, which is how I've gotten involved in my research. They engage their community and they help educate young people. And so for me, that close organization, I think, is a wonderful group that I'm passionate about. But I think there's a lot of cool ways for you to identify some ones that are pretty close to you. I don't know about Leela, but that's my thought.
Yeah, so besides EarthEcho, which is actually where I get a lot of insight on people from different backgrounds, even through like our STEM Explorer program, right? Seeing people who come from these really, really cool places in science and kind of moving forward and advocating for the environment, that's something that inspires me. And so another great resource that I've used, since I do a lot of research and right now we're in the middle of COVID, I can't really go to my lab. And something that I think a lot of people forget is how powerful the internet is as a source to be able to do your own research at home, even just from like your computer, you know, or even like a mobile phone. I think a lot of people should take a look at NOAA's Coral Reef Watch for a couple of reasons. Some of the research that I'm doing right now is I'm analyzing different trends between like global coral bleaching events and seeing how they can impact different marine species that are useful for the type of research that I do. But even then they have like this really, really cool attachment that you can use on Google Earth, where you can actually just like look at the globe and analyze and just kind of look at different bleaching events in different areas. And so kind of like that map that Olivia showed earlier, you can see where a lot of these bleaching events are hitting. And you can also maybe even look at, you know, where we're trying to push forward marine protected areas in terms of 30 by 30, kind of do that fun comparison if you ever got the time to kind of look at, you know, how are we trying to combat a lot of what's happening and how we can be pushing forward marine protected areas to be able to help a lot of that. And continuing to look into some of the questions in the chat. I don't know if anyone has any questions that they
Also,
specifically...
Leela, I'm going to jump in really quick too, because I also had one other organization I wanted to mention that you guys kind of gave me some ideas for. And so for me, when I was first starting out, I grew up in about 45 minutes north of Baltimore, Maryland. And so I, from a young age, got really involved in like a local environmental center and education center. So there's lots of local, you know, state parks, you know, local parks that you know, are always looking for people to usually get involved with their local projects. Sometimes it's just cleanup, sometimes it's bigger, you know, bigger projects. Through that environmental center, I got really into bird banding. So I studied bird populations for a couple of years, and that was a really cool experience that really kind of launched me into science and getting interested in ecology in general. But also, no matter where you're in the country, I bet you're probably close to an aquarium or a zoo. A lot of these places have really great conservation programs already kind of set up. I know I volunteered at the National Aquarium in Baltimore for a couple of years, and that was a great experience for me to not only learn a bunch about the animals there and the ocean, but also learn how to translate that and communicate it to people who may not know all that much about the ocean. So that was a really cool experience. And I know a lot of different aquariums and zoos have similar programs to that, where you can get involved even as young as sometimes late middle school and high school. So that's also a great opportunity as well. So I think, and I see one other question in the chat that says, we are 15 and 16 and very interested in zero plastic use and saving our planet. So kudos to you. I'm so glad to hear that. There is definitely a great need for that. And it's so exciting that you're so interested in that already. And so the question is there a way to join the OceanEcho Youth? And so for that, we're going to pass that back again to that slide again. Also, I see another question coming in, but again, this is a really great way for you to kind of just get connected with EarthEcho. It also, we a lot of times talk about our other programs like STEM Explorer, where we have virtual career connections or field trips constantly, where that you can come and attend throughout the year at different times. And we have a ton of different ones already online for you to learn more about. We have our water challenge, so you can get involved with monitoring water quality in your backyard. There's lots of different ways to get plugged into EarthEcho, but the Youth Action Network is definitely a great first start. And also, Every year, we are always accepting new people to our Youth Leadership Council, and I believe the age is 13 to 22 still. So if you're in that age range, you may be able to apply to our council as well and share a little bit about the projects that you're doing, why you'd like to be even part of the Youth Leadership Council. So there's lots of great ways, but again, I would really encourage you to plug in tomorrow because that is definitely an event not to miss. And I'm even really excited. I feel every single time I go to one of these events, we have such great speakers, and I always learn so much from the other youth there and the speakers that are there as well. And I see we actually got one more question in. And then this one says, when thinking about a specific project or all of your projects, which do you find more interesting to think about? Using patterns or determining cause and effect, or how structure related to function? That is a really fantastic question. So I'll answer this one last, but Maddie or Leela, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think that's an awesome question. I haven't gotten this question before. I mean, all of these different patterns are really useful to look at together in the big picture. But when you're one person working with a group of individuals, or you're a principal investigator making a project, it's hard to account for all of those things at one time. So you're right that you kind of have to separate out how you begin to start those projects. And for me, this is tough. I think cause and effect is a really interesting one to look at, and probably the most applicable and easy to develop within a research setting. So if I do this, how does it respond? If I don't do this, how does it respond? If I do this and also this, which one does it respond to more? And so I like to be able to quantify that, but that's not always possible, especially when we don't know that much about the marine world. And so in that sense, we can also look at structure and say, okay, based on what we know, if I take this blood sample and I run it this way, we expect to see X. But if I run it a different way, what do we see? Like, and what does it mean? And so for me, looking at sea turtle blood in relation to alligator blood in terms of immune system suppression and how that relates to the environment is something that involves both of those. But I'll stick with cause and effect as my favorite, because I think it's cool to be able to test one thing and see what the result is, even if it's in a lab setting, which is a little different from marine life. But great question.
Okay, from like my inner science nerd, I know this makes everyone excited, because whenever someone asks someone who's really passionate about science one of these questions, you know that their brain, like all the light bulbs, I can see Olivia and Maddie laughing. It's this thing. And I think for me, I'm gonna go the other route, and I'm gonna look at structure related to function. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of my research is novel, in the sense that the stuff that I do, like isolating endophytes from corals and deriving compounds from them and being able to apply them in different medical settings, it's kind of applying a lot of really, really hard chemistry and biology, in the sense that whatever you see, you can understand why this is happening, right? What the function of this is, whether it's showing anti-proliferation against cancer cells or things against like antibacterial tests. And so when we look at structure and function, I actually read this really interesting article yesterday, because I'm still having the fun times of writing all these scientific papers. I saw a thing that was testing different types of coral bleaching. So in not only a natural setting, but in like a controlled lab setting, and seeing the yields of secondary metabolites from those. And what was really, really cool, it's this kind of mix between cause and effect and structure and function, in which they were actually able to see, because coral bleaching was really evident in the spots that they test, the absence of zooxanthellae in that specific region of coral actually hindered the ability for secondary metabolites to be produced. And so that's kind of a cool mix between cause and effect and structure and function. And so with me kind of digging into those biological roots and then looping it back into the environment is something that I focused on. So I would have to say pretty much structure related to function.
So this is like, I'm going to be like the tiebreaker, I guess, because I think that both are super interesting. And so when I think about my projects, so my research for my PhD, I actually, I'll be honest, I made a pretty big switch in my PhD recently. So that is why I did not know what year I was in the beginning, because things have kind of changed pretty quickly. But I'm actually starting a new project where I'm going to be looking at how mangroves, so basically what's happening is with climate change, a lot of mangroves are actually expanding poleward, or in my case, case in Florida, northward, because they're actually like, there's fewer freezes and there's a lot more annual like rain events and things like that that drive essentially mangroves further north, and then it's actually interfering with salt marshes. So salt marshes usually kind of meet at that boundary. And so one of the big things that we're seeing is that there's actually maybe changes in the fish communities that use these ecosystems. And basically, like, we have no idea how this is going to have long-term effects on these different places, since they do provide similar functions, but they're very different in terms of the vegetation that's there and some of the animals that live there. So it's definitely a really new and kind of, there's very few studies that really have covered this because it is such a new place of research. But for me, my biggest thing is that when I think about my project's big picture, I think about using observations to then drive which approach I use. So for me, it's going out and looking at these areas and looking at kind of what's happening. And that you can do for anything, whether it's me kayaking through the mangroves, or whether it's Leela on the coral reefs, or, Maddie working with her turtles, like anything you can do. Like one of my favorite scientists, Dr. Sylvia Earle, says that every single person can be a scientist, because all it really takes is that you are observing carefully and reporting honestly what you see. And so I've used cause and effect in my research. I've used, structure related to function. I've used different approaches, but it's really about just seeing what's out there and then coming up with questions and seeing, okay, well, this is my question. What tools can I use? What approach can I use? What approaches are other people using to answer similar questions? And then employing that. So I think that's one of the cool things about being a scientist, is you have a toolbox, but it has so many different tools in it, because you're always constantly answering different questions and using new approaches to come to different conclusions and to learn more about the natural world. So that's a really exciting question, though, and you can tell that all of us as scientists geeked out a little bit. So thank you for asking that, and hopefully that was helpful for you. But with that, I think we're going to actually wrap up this session. So I just want to thank one more time the National Biodiversity Teach-In for hosting us. This was such a fun event. We hope that you guys have learned so much more about our ocean and are just as excited as we are about protecting 30% of the ocean by 2030. And if you can join us tomorrow, again, you can find all that information at earthecho.org/youth, and we can get you plugged in with a whole bunch of other young people from around the world who are just as excited about reaching this goal. And you can come and be part of our EarthEcho community. So thank you so much again. And until next time, have a good one.